Alright, hello again. This is Jeff Scott of Blackhawk Technical College, and I've been going over the PowerPoint presentations from the Murox MySQL second edition text, the text for our online version of 152, 147, Relational Database Development for the Spring 2016 semester. And as you can see, we're in Chapter 12 now, which is on how to create views. This will be the last chapter for Section 3, I believe it is, of the book. Section 4, which is on language skills for stored programs, and it takes up, I believe, chapters 13, 14, 15, and 16. I will be lecturing on those, but just on the PowerPoints. Same thing with 17, 18, and 19, which is on database administration. So let's talk a little bit about views. All right, I define a view myself as being basically it's a saved query. So if I've got a query that I'm running a lot, okay, and I wish I would have closed that so I can reopen it. So if I've got a query that I'm running a lot, so we'll use employees. All right. Show databases. Oh, I've got to log in first. Show databases. And what was that one called? Work, I believe. So use work. Show tables. Employees. Select star from employees. Okay. Let's assume that instead of doing this, I wanted to change the order around. So I was constantly writing a query that said select first name as first, comma, last name as last, comma, department number as dept, comma, salary from employees, order by salary, descending order. So let's say I was always writing that particular, right? I was always writing that particular query all the time. And it got to be where this was kind of ridiculous that I'm writing this. Well, notice now what I can do is I can say create view, let's just call it v underscore sal. So view underscore salary as. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to have everything that I put in there before. So select first, last, department, salary, from employees, order by salary description. Now I've created a new view that's called v underscore salary. Well, what did I gain by that? Well, instead of having to type in all that stuff, can't I now just go in and type in select star from v underscore salary? And notice I get the same information, but it's a lot less typing. So this isn't the only reason for using views, but a main reason for using views is when you've got a long, kind of laborious query that you're typing a lot, you can save it as a view and make it much shorter. All right, so that was kind of my intro, so to speak, to what we're going to be talking about. So, create and use views, including read-only and updatable views. Describe a view. Describe the benefits of using views. Given a view, determine whether or not it is updatable. And describe the effect of the with check option clause on an updatable view. So here we go. I just showed you that this is how you use the create view statement. So now instead of typing select vendor name, comma, vendor state, comma, vendor phone from vendors, now you can just say select star from vendors underscore min. And notice we've got select star from vendors underscore min. So we're using in here, instead of the table name, which we've been doing all along, now we're using a view name. So select all the fields from there. So, in other words, the vendor name, the vendor state, and the vendor phone, but only where the state is California. And then we're doing it by vendor name, ordering it by that. An update statement that uses the view to update the table. So update vendors min. Now, views themselves, they're a picture of typically what's in one or more tables, but we're saying update vendors min, set the phone number equal to this. All right, where the phone number equal that. So notice what it says though. We're using the view, but using the view, we're actually updating the underlying table. All right, there's another reason that you might want to use these. Dropping a view, pretty simple. So some of the benefits that are provided by views. This is what we started talking about. The first, design independence. Because what I can do now is, if I'm a developer and I don't want somebody to exactly know every single thing I'm doing, I can create a very, very complex view and save it with a simple name, and all they have to do is run the view, and they are never the wiser for what's going on underneath the hood. That is both design independence and simplified queries. All right. Data security. Well, one thing with views, one of these things that you can do is you can give different people different abilities on the same table. We've talked about examples like this before in other classes, where I've used the example of somebody who's a bank teller having different capabilities, looking at they can look at your balance, they can take deposits and give withdrawals, but they can't do much more, as opposed to a personal banker who can do a lot more. And again, updatability, which you just saw. So again, here's how you create a view. Create or replace, if you want to put down view if there was one by that name. We'll get into the check option in just a bit. So basically anything you do with a table, you can do with a view. All right. Let's talk though about another reason for using a view. Well, what if I had a very complex join that I was doing, let's say between 5 different tables? I wouldn't want to be constantly typing that in. I wouldn't even want to save it and be dropping it in. I would want to save that as a view with a fairly simple name, and then just be able to run the view. So, for updatable views, as it says, the select list can't include a distinct clause. The select list can't include any of those aggregate functions. And I should mention, we went over a chapter on aggregate functions. If you remember, count, count star, min, max, sum, and average. There are a few other ones that were not discussed in the book, but there's one for standard deviation, and there's some variance and some other ones, but they're not used very often. The select statement can't include a group by or having clause, and it can't include the union operator. If you don't have any of those, then the view can be updatable. Again, I look at it this way, that more than anything else, the reason that I might use a view is to make my life a little bit easier. Okay? All right. And here, when you try to break one of the rules that they talked about before, an update statement that attempts to use a view to update a calculated column. It says balance due is not updatable. So if you wanted to do that, you'd have to do it in the table itself, not in a view. All right. Next, you notice on here they talk about using the check option statement. And if you're following along in the book, I'm on around page 364. It says the following example shows an example of an updated view that uses the with check option clause. That prevents an update if it causes the row to be excluded from the view. So as it says, if you try to modify a row so that it's no longer included in the view and you have the with check option, it's a way to kind of, for lack of better words, to protect yourself from yourself. All right. And they give some examples of this. Here's where you were trying to update it, set this or this. All right, and it says that it failed. To be honest with you, have I used this stuff before? Yes, but not to the extreme where I've done very much with the with check option. Okay. So the idea is when you've got a view like this, it's not designed to replace tables. It's designed to supplement or augment tables to make your life using tables a little bit easier. So you can do many things that you can do with tables, but again, it's not a substitute for them. That pretty much is it. I'll let you read that, and again, we will look at that in a little bit more depth and breadth of coverage. I did want to mention, though, I've said this before, whoops, I guess this is short, that next we're going to be going over chapters 13 through 16. 13 is on language skills for stored programs. 14 is on transactions and locking. It's a very short chapter. 15 is on stored procedures and functions. 16 is another fairly short chapter on triggers and events. Once we get done with those, we'll have left 17, 18, and 19. Those are all on database administration. So I'll be back to continue on with this in just a bit.